Oh, I'm glad I got that leak fixed today, but man, hate to change something like that out. Good piece of good old made in the USA product, but it ran its course. I had to replace it with what I had available, one of these Chinese pieces of garbage. Oh, hey guys. Yeah, I was just kind of recapping in my head repair I had to do today. And it was relating to these water valves. As you can see here, this older one is copper, and it's been in there a while, but it's copper and brass. And this more modern one is made out of, I don't know what kind of metal that is, but it's very thin. It doesn't last very long compared to this one. This one's probably 15, 20 years old. I'd be lucky to get 5 years out of this one. And that just reminded me of the continued decline here in the United States of America that I'm seeing. As someone that does my own repairs, I've paid a lot of attention to the deterioration of the product quality over the years. Not only the quality, but the service related to attaining that product, whatever that is. Like if you go to the parts store, 15, 20 years ago, the people behind the counter actually knew how to work on cars, and it made a big difference when you were trying to find a part. So as someone who's a homesteader and is striving to be more and more self-reliant, self-sufficient, creating more of my own products on my own land, things like that, I even want to get into solar production and things like that in the future. But since I've researched a lot of that stuff, when you have solar, when you have a solar array that's trying to power your entire house, right, then you're going to need to cook somehow. And I have yet to see a battery bank or a inverter or a solar array that's capable of running a standard oven that most people have in their homes, an electric oven. So the answer for that has always been the gas range. I guess you could also say cooking on top of the wood stove, but the EPA has been cracking down for years and years because of Obama's Clean Air Act, I believe it was. I believe that was enacted in like 2014 or something like that. And it's a progressive law. So as time goes on, more and more of these things are enacted. Well, they're basically trying to ban people from being able to use old-fashioned wood stoves, especially in new construction. So you may have to jump through some loopholes, and one of the ways they'll keep you from using a wood stove inside your house is they'll just not allow you to buy insurance. So that means your lender is not going to allow that. You're going to have insurance. So they've created these situations where they have us over a barrel. So it's bad enough they're trying to go after wood stoves and making them cleaner and cleaner. And I get it, you want the things to breathe and put off as little carbon as possible. But they've gotten to the point where they're going over the top. These modern EPA stoves, I have ran them, and they put off almost zero smoke. The only time they smoke is when you're first starting them up. That's unavoidable. Any stove will smoke right then. But after the fire's established, they're very clean. They reduced a lot of the carbon output. So I really don't have a problem with striving for that sort of stuff. It's when it's regulated and you're not allowed to do it anymore. That's when I have a problem. So the latest thing they're working on, I've been hearing about this for the last 24, 48 hours, and I've been reading every article I can find. The latest thing is they're going to ban gas stoves inside of your home. So that doesn't mean they're going to come and take your gas stove out. If you already have one, you should be grandfathered in. But it could come to a situation where one day, if you wanted to sell that home or something, you might not be allowed to until you got rid of that gas stove. Or if that gas stove goes out, you won't be able to buy a new one in the future. And it's just getting ridiculous. My wife and I, we went through this crap about probably 5 to 7 years ago now. We bought a washing machine. Our old one started messing up. Something small happened. I don't even remember what the deal was, but it ended up costing me like $75 to have the old one repaired, which is what we ended up doing in the long run. But to make a long story short, we bought one of these new Energy Saver washers, brand new from Lowe's. It was the top of the line Whirlpool. It wasn't cheap. We brought it home, hooked it up, and our pipes started water hammering because we're on a well out here. And apparently they work fine in the city application, but they don't work fine on a well application, which is what you're going to have if you're living out in the country, or if you're in an off-grid situation. Most likely you're going to be running a well. And it's my understanding that because of the new EPA regulations in water temperature, there's a computer that turns a solenoid on and off, on and off, and on and off. and it creates a water hammering situation when you're on a well. Maybe it's not a problem on city water pressure, but for whatever reason, it's a problem on wells. And I didn't want to ruin all my copper pipes by letting that thing water hammer, so I pulled it out, boxed it up, had to raise hell with Lowe's, and ended up sending that thing back. But the point is they're part of the reason our quality is going down is because they're regulating the ability of companies that have known how to do these things for years and years, generations even. They're regulating them out of business, out of the country, out of profitability. And it's all being done intentionally by design according to the plan of UN Agenda 21 2030 and the Great Reset and all that garbage. So there was a report. Biden officials are considering banning gas stoves in the U.S. So there you go. And in the article, they specifically say natural gas, but I think they're going after propane as well. And that's most likely what off-gridders are going to be using. Most likely for a solar setup that's self-reliant, you're going to have a gas range that runs on propane. You'll have a big propane bottle out there that you'll have to pay the guy once every 3 years to come fill up or whatever, depending on how many of your other systems run off of that propane. But most people, just for the ease of it that I know, will run their stove and sometimes their refrigerator, but also their if they have a gas dryer. Sometimes people have a propane dryer and things like that. There's lots of appliances you can run on gas besides just your range and your stove. So anyway, it's a huge deal. This is the latest push. And it reminds me of how every time the government gets involved in anything, they screw it up. Exhibit A, gas cans. The fuel cans we have to suffer through right now. And it might not be a big deal to you if you only have to deal with like 1 gallon cans or something. Or maybe you've got a bunch of old cans and you've never noticed it. But these modern cans with the Safety Sally anti-spill features cause more spills and cause more strain, especially the large cans, because you have to hold the thing up and it takes forever to vent the thing out because it has no vent. Everything they touch, they screw it up to what we have now with the gas cans that are just unusable. I have to change out the nozzles at like $10 a pop, but it's worth it for me to change out the nozzles and put a vent in these crappy EPA gas cans to not only save me time and strain, but it keeps me from spilling the gas. So I think that's a big deal. Next headline here, right on cue. CNN says, the science is showing us having a gas stove in a home is like having a car idling there. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So CNN is already picking up, even though the Biden officials are only considering banning gas stoves, CNN is already picking up the torch and running with it and telling you how terrible and bad it is. Revealed, World Economic Forum partner is behind the sudden push to ban gas stoves. So it all goes back to the New World Order, the World Economic Forum, also known as the UN Agenda 21 2030. This is how they're going to do it, guys. They're going to take all of our abilities away to be self-reliant. They don't want people that are self-reliant. They don't want people that are rugged individualists to exist. They don't want us to be able to just maintain and, have a good life for our families and just mind our own business and keep to ourselves. That's not good enough. They're going to come and take that ability away from you. And again, they may not take your stove. What they'll do is they'll ban the manufacture and sale of them in the United States after a certain date, and then after that date, you'll never be able to buy another gas stove again. And so, anyway, you might want to start looking at a gas stove if you ever want to have one, and have it sitting in your shop or your warehouse somewhere, because, again, there could come a point when you can't get them. I mean, I'm reminded of something else the government got involved with a few years ago, and I don't know whatever happened on that deal, but several of the manufacturers of dishwashers got together and complained to the government because they were like, look, man, your standards are so over the top, we cannot possibly clean these dishes in one cycle. It would take 2 cycles, therefore doubling the amount of water that we would have to use. And it was all about, reducing the amount of water usage. And I think, again, we should be striving for those kinds of things and finding better ways and better solutions to different problems that we have. but not at the expense of making it to where a dishwasher doesn't even do its basic function anymore because the government has regulated it out of usefulness. I mean, it's just unreal. Unreal. And these EPA taps that have been, I mean, you go buy a new shower head, the thing just barely trickles out. And the secret there is you have to get inside and drill out that washer. That's essentially a water restrictor. It's just, no, I don't want that. And before long, mark my words, if something doesn't happen soon to change Biden's direction, the EPA and the Department of Environmental Quality and all these people will get together with Biden, and they will want to put a meter on your well. And in fact, I think they're already doing it in certain parts of the country. But that's the next step. They want to know how much water you're using, and it's essentially your carbon footprint. The more you use, eventually you'll have to pay a tax for it over a certain allotted amount, whatever the government says you deserve. So guys, this is the consequences of elections. And I tried to warn people before it happened, but my little channel didn't touch enough people to offset all of the other stuff that happened from the mail-in voting and all that. So anyway, can't talk about that. Right on cue. Ban, 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 ban. That's what fascists and leftists and communists do. So guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Let me know what you think about this. I mean, is this going to change your behavior? Are you going to go out right away and buy that gas stove that maybe you were thinking about putting off for a couple of years? Maybe you should get it now if you need a new one, because soon enough, you may not be able to get them anymore. Oh man, bye-bye, Miss American Pie, I guess. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Until then, we'll see you next time.